Okay, we're live. Now, while things settle out, I'm just going to explain what we're doing because it's been quite a while since I've done one of these. If you look at the title, obviously, we're doing a news dive, which is far different than what I'm used to doing, but it's something that I enjoy doing. I can't believe how many times I said doing, but anyway. So yeah, we're here, sitting in front of a little bit of a different screen, and we're actually going to keep it on face cam this time, just so I can have a little bit bigger face, and so we have this in the background. So actually right here, I'm going to scale up my face a little bit because I have the room. And then I'm actually going to put the display capture on top. No, that doesn't look right. Never mind. We're going to go like that. Okay. Well, that looks pretty good. Scaled myself up just a little bit, and with that, we're going to get started here in a couple minutes. We're just going to wait for things to settle out, and once that looks good, we'll switch over to the script. Okay. So yeah, welcome to Newsdive for May 29th. We're going to split this up into two different sections. We're talking first about politics. We're going to go world news, and then a little bit more focused on the U.S., and then we're going to switch over to technology entertainment, so you guys can watch whatever you want to watch. I'll obviously edit these out so you can pick what you want later, but for now, if you are stuck for this stream, you can watch the entire thing. It should be a pretty cut and dry thing. Let's just get started with some very important news. And that is the most recent elections that happened in Europe. This is the EU elections. This was for Parliament and different houses, I guess the different houses of seats that were being elected for. So we'll start things off with the big ones. The most important ones are here towards the beginning. You have Austria, you have Belgium, Italy, France, all these big elections. Here we look at the countries with the most votes. Yep, here we go. France with 74. If we scroll down a little bit, Italy with 73. Hungary has a lot too. If we go up a little bit, we have a couple more. We got Austria and Belgium with a couple. Bulgaria too. So I'm pointing these guys out first because these were all elections that had a large showing of far right or at least center right parties receiving most of the votes. So like here in Austria, the Conservative People's Party, they won 34% of the vote. If we look elsewhere, I think if we go down to Italy, we can see that, where is it? There's Italy. So here we go, anti-immigration league. So that's an important thing to pay attention to. The fact that many of these countries, their new parties, the ones that gain support, are anti-immigration parties and are very right-wing parties. And this is mainly because of the shift that's been happening. Specifically, you want to say asylum seekers, what have you, any amount of those things. They're all important, and they all kind of feed into each other. So, when a country it receives a certain amount of issue, then that country is going to shift their vote. And we can also see that in places like Hungary, Viktor Orban. Yep, nationalist parties are common. Here up in France, we see Marine Le Pen, her far right nationalist party, the National Rally. Yep, of course. So we're seeing a big shift as countries tend to sway one way, that they also tend to sway back the other way during the next elections. And you can see, in places where it wasn't like Germany, where it was a large showing for the Liberals or the Green Party. You can see up here, Liberals grew a lot, center right, but Green Party grew a lot. Socialists and Democrats shrunk. This is just the general viewing of everything, but we can see that it's not a huge shift towards any one group, but we can see that, conservatives, populists, nationalists, right wing, just in general, they receive a lot of support here in this election, and this is gonna shift a lot. And the last most important one I think that's important to look at here is down here towards the bottom. Um, you know, besides the Labor Party, in addition, here we see another anti-immigration party. All these things. Social Democrats, yep. These social democrats all have their power shifted. These socialists, they get changed by these brand new parties, just like down here in the UK, which is a very important one to talk about. The Brexit Party, brand new party, completely separate from the populist and the Labour Party, or I mean the Conservative and the Labour Party. Um, it's Nigel Farage just working on his own and deciding that this policy, this Brexit policy, is going to become a huge part of the UK's base, essentially. And so if we scroll back up here, we can see that newer independent parties, that there's been a lot of seat changes there. And so it's just important to realize that you know all these movements and all the power that people have, really, this is an important takeaway that we have, is that people who support each other and create these echo chambers and these large groups, they all feed into each other, and they all actually have very, very much power here in the EU. You see that these groups, they do vote in these new parties, and in places where being liberal is already strong, you can see that it's grown a lot. But in places where maybe a centrist party is succeeding or something like that, where they would normally succeed, the centrists are shifting more towards the right. So we're seeing a major polarization of the EU climate, just like we see in the US. I mean, this is just a polarizing time all in itself. Okay. But anyway, moving on, we're going to talk about the US now. But this is still a kind of a world news topic. It's that Trump is actually taking, he might take a legal loophole, or even a national security emergency. He might pull that because of the threats that Iran is posing towards Saudi Arabia. And so Trump is going to use this threat of Iran as kind of a way to keep selling arms to the Saudi Arabians. And he's doing this because of a security waiver in the Arms Export Control Act. Here we go, right here. Mainly because of, here, let's see if we can find it. Yep, congressional opposition. And that opposition has come mostly because of not only Jamal Khashoggi, which is important, but also because of the potential civilian deaths being caused by the war in Yemen. This proxy war that's happening between Saudi forces and Iranian-backed militias. Yeah, right here, this Saudi-led war against Iranian-backed rebels. Well, excuse me. Yeah, but it's really just a conflict not only between Saudi Arabia and Yemen, but in addition, it's also a conflict between the Trump administration and Congress. We see this over and over. Trump wants one thing, Trump wants money, and then here we have people in Congress just working hopefully towards the good of Yemen, the good of remembering Jamal Khashoggi and his death, and realizing that Saudi Arabia isn't all good, and making billions of dollars. Yep, blocked about $2 billion in arms sales, and so this is just Trump trying to make that money back and trying to find some support and gain a huge monetary support back from the Saudi Arabians. And so now we move over to the next one, which is actually going to be another story about Trump. This is a little bit of a different one, a little heavy in the words, but there's not a lot to it really. So this story is pretty simple. It all pretty much sums it up in the headline. But Stephen M. Koch, he's charged. He's been officially charged with corruption in some way, shape, or form because of his. Well, I wouldn't call it successful because it didn't actually go through in the way he wanted it to. But here it says, if we can find it, abuse the power entrusted to him. That's not what I want. But essentially, what Koch does, here we go, with financial institution bribery for corruptly using his position as the head of a federally insured bank to issue millions of dollars, here we go, millions of dollars in high-risk loans to a borrower in exchange for a personal benefit. And so that personal benefit was going to be a position in the Trump administration. And even though it didn't fall through and he didn't actually get a position, he did actually give money to Trump and the Trump administration. And this was all part of his plan. And so eventually the FBI assistant director Sweeney Jr., he said that Koch definitely wanted to give Trump all this money directly from a federally insured bank just so that he could get a position. And that's most definitely, whatever you want to call it, nepotism. It's definitely illegal, and it's definitely at least a little bit of corruption. And so we see more and more that Trump supporters are slowly getting outed, and the people that Trump puts on his payroll are slowly getting removed because one bad thing or another. And even though this guy, I mean, somewhere in here it talks about how he avoids basically every traditional bank mishap, or I guess you want to call it, or he tries to avoid making mistakes in it because of the fact that he wants this to go through. And you see that more and more we see these smart guys and these successful people that are trying to get on Trump's payroll and trying to do this and trying to do that. And eventually, I mean, slowly and surely, this FBI, the people in charge of this administration, the actual administrations in charge of keeping the country safe, they're slowly discovering that the people that work with Trump are not great people, and they, bad apples tend to rot together, I guess, is a phrase that I would use. Who knows if it's accurate or not. I think it applies pretty well. But anyway, speaking of bad apples, let's talk about the last story for politics section, which is going to be Michael Avenatti. This is a kind of an interesting one because if you don't remember, Michael Avenatti was kind of like the poster boy. He was the poster child. If you remember, he was the bald dude that went on CNN, Fox News, whatever you want to call it, over and over and tried, I guess succeeded actually in painting this lawsuit from Stormy Daniels as kind of like, oh, I'm gonna stick it to Trump, and he was this good boy, and really Avenatti's a swindler. He's been stealing money from people for years, and it's just coming out now that he's about to get charged for defrauding Stormy Daniels. And this is even more showing that bad apples rot together, and Avenatti was using Trump as a stepping stone to help produce who knows how many number of different avenues of wealth. And you can see right here, where's this? There's a $300,000 figure somewhere around here that Avenatti has actually stolen and defrauded from Stormy Daniels. And if we look, we can see that she directly paid only $100 for all that she received. Okay, so that's a statement from Avenatti. So it looks like Avenatti is trying to paint this picture as, oh, I'm the good guy, but in reality, you can't deny $300,000 missing. Here we go. He used a doctored document to divert about 300. Here, we'll just highlight this real quick. $300,000 that Stormy Daniels was supposed to get for a book deal. So you can see That's an important thing to remember. So Avenatti is using this power and this success and this notoriety that he's getting from all this stuff, and he's saying, "Oh, look at this! I can use this to my advantage, and I can help produce this book deal, and I can make this happen and make this happen." And then he just steals money from him. And if we go down here a little bit, we can see that he tried to extort 25 million from Nike, and this is all because he's shady. He's really a swindler, and he really wants he's doing all these bad things, tax evasion, bank fraud, all these things that are very illegal, and he's getting away with it for the most part because he's smart. And smart people at some point, every bad person has got to fall. And we're just finding out now that, good Lord, does this guy have a long way to fall. Yeah, so this is just another case of, never trust the guy, never trust anyone who's super on one side, I would say. If whether it be Avenatti, I'm against Trump Avenatti, or on the other side, you can't support people like Trump who are saying, this is a military endeavor. This is a national security problem. There's something to be said for, a polarizing climate leading to stupidity and leading to bad decisions and things going wrong. And so I think that's what we should take away, is that, good Lord, do we have to be careful, and do we have to be reasonable? Because when you're reasonable, you actually, it's in the name, you use reason, and you got to think things through a little bit more. And when you're all up high and mighty, it doesn't really help you think things through. Okay, anyway, I could talk about this forever. Let's move on to our next set of stories. I'll just do a quick intro again, and then we can get started. All right, so welcome to the second half of the Newsdive. This will be a little bit different. I thought I would split it up based on politics and then the rest of it. So we're talking about something a little bit different. Here we're just talking about some Senate bills real quick, and then we'll move on to some more interesting stories, hopefully something to catch your eye. So this is a really important one. Unanimous bill passed by the Senate to prevent robocalls, and it's called the Traced Act. And essentially what it does, it's pretty simple. All it does, it gives a couple things. It lengthens the time that robocalls can be prosecuted. It increases the cost of prosecution, so robocallers can get charged way more. And it helps. So this bill is designed to put what am I trying to say? I lost the words. To put the FCC together, to combine it with, the rest of the government agencies that could help with that, and help the FCC work together with, the FTC. What else? Yeah. Federal Trade Commission, Homeland Security, Department of Justice, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. That's a big one too. So all of these guys are working together to help combat these robocallers, because we all know we hate getting that call, that whatever you want to say it was, but good Lord. I mean, they want to give us our money, and it works enough that this is a big enough issue. And so it's important to see that, the government still works together on some things. And this is going to be the government putting all its cards on the table to stop this. Okay. Yeah, this is it's an interesting one. And to go along with that, yeah, you see, this is another headline that'll be really interesting to a lot of people. Bill to ban the sale of loot boxes to children presses forward with bipartisan support. So this is John Hawley, formally introducing his bill to ban the sale of loot boxes to children. Yep. And so this guy, I assume it's this guy. Yeah, that is Hawley. I mean, these guys they're working together at least somewhat, and you can see that. It's funny to think that the only time that old people can work together is when they're deciding how bad video games are for the youth, and it's like, oh, honestly, dude. I mean, it's a pretty simple story. It's just the Protecting Children from Abuse of Games Act, and let's see. It would prohibit video game companies from selling loot boxes to children under the age of 18. And it would also prevent pay-to-win mechanics. And so this is one of those examples of the fact that, video game companies aren't going to change it. Lord knows we aren't going to change it. So in the end, it has to come down to legislation that these companies this government is saying, we see that in, God, I don't remember where. I want to say, I don't want to be wrong here. We could look over here. Maybe it's Sweden. Maybe it's Bulgaria, I want to say. Finland sounds right. Let's just look through here. Yeah, but there's some EU company, probably Poland or the Netherlands actually, where they've actually banned loot boxes for children, or maybe even completely. Maybe it's Belgium that I'm thinking of. Yeah, I think it's Belgium. Yeah, so Belgium is banning loot boxes, and they're saying, these guys in the government are saying, I think we can work together to prevent this problem that probably will be a much bigger issue, and I can actually approve of this. I like seeing that, some of these young guys, obviously this guy is younger than Mitch McConnell or whoever the hell, but in general we see that these our lawmakers are trying to think ahead, and they're trying to prevent some of these problems from being bigger issues, because I can almost definitely say that loot boxes are not going to go away, and they're not going to become any less of an issue for this country and these kids. Okay, that's all I got to say on this one. It's a pretty simple story. This is a pretty complicated story, though, to talk about. So this is the Huawei ban. This is from the Associated Press. Pretty unbiased. So we're talking about this. This is a pretty deep story. It runs a lot, and it has a lot of tracks to it. So I guess this really begins with the U.S.-China trade deal a long time ago. Lord knows when the trade war started, but it's continued to the utmost, and it's a doozy of a deal. You know what I'm saying? There's no other way to put it. And so, Trump and China have been going back and forth, imposing these trade restrictions. And then at some point, the Trump administration said, we're not going to allow this Huawei technology, this 5G service that Huawei has. Huawei being, mostly unknown in the U.S., but around the world, Huawei is the largest, or one of the largest, fifth generation telecom companies in the world. And so their phones and their software and their hardware, it's just all over the place, and I would say it's ubiquitous and essential in 5G technology in general, and just technology, honestly. And so most recently, let me just see, Trump added Huawei to the U.S. Commerce Department entity list, and that essentially just says that, here we see right here, it'll bring Huawei technology and make it illegal, or essentially illegal, to bring it into the country without some kind of government approval, and that even includes U.S. technologies working with each other and working with Huawei to create phones and create all these things. And so Huawei comes back and says, this isn't constitutional. This isn't legal. Like, our business is hindered by this, and so many more things are hindered because of the fact that, not only this, but rare earths are also part of it, and China's restricting that. And so it's really this. It's when you look at it from a broader perspective, you can see that this is mostly just a trade deal, and a trade war, I should say, and that Huawei is caught in the middle of this. And Huawei says, we see this, and that this isn't legal. So you really see that. Well, it's hard to explain, but essentially what Huawei is saying is that this telecom and the services that they provide, while Trump says, oh, this is dangerous to the country, and the 5G technology is has a back door. That's really the big issue that Trump is talking about. Huawei comes back and says, what back door? Where are we seeing this? And they're saying, it's been said that companies like Siemens and other companies that are developing chips, their chips have just as many back doors as Huawei does, and it's just this back and forth that you see between essentially China and the U.S. that U.S. is gonna tariff one thing, China's gonna do the same, blah 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 blah, and we get to hear where Huawei is like, I've had enough, and that's essentially what we're talking about. And perfectly tying into that is our next story. This is from NPR, and this is talking about Chinese-made drones and more U.S. fear of them. And you can see that drones made in China, the U.S. is saying you shouldn't be using these because there could be a back door, and there's potential use for terrorism, mass casualty incidents, interference with air traffic, as well as corporate espionage and invasions of privacy. Yep. And so this video, I assume it's a video, I guess so, but they're talking about how Chinese made drones, just like Chinese made phones. Weird how it rhymes like that. But as well as 5G technology, it's all the administration is claiming that this is all one big scheme to work against the US and to take down the US. And you can see just the paranoia and the fear and almost the anger that the U.S. administration has towards China. And while some of it is unfounded, you could also say, what is China doing? Like, what do we know about China? We know what Xi Jinping blocks the internet. There's no Google. There's no games need a mass firewall. You've heard about that, the Great Firewall. Bigger than the Great Wall, probably China's greatest wall ever. This firewall that blocks all of China, and you see China has the capability and they can do these things. And so it's not unfounded to say that Chinese drones or Chinese technology could have some kind of hidden loop that could take down the US. But at least from this standpoint and from NPR's standpoint, we see that people see this as a little unfounded. They see, like, I assume DJI is a I guess DJI is separate from that, but who knows? Essentially what we're talking about. Yeah, okay, here we go. This is what I'm talking about. The US Army barred use of DJI drones. Like, we can see that this administration and the country does not trust Chinese-made products at all. And they see the dangers in these things. And, who knows if they're unfounded or not. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say. Paranoid administrations will continue being paranoid. But we move on to just some entertainment stories that I thought I would pull up. This is a really funny one. If you don't know who Moby is, think back to the Eminem song. I don't remember. Is it I'm Slim Shady? Chicka Chicka or whatever it's called. I don't remember what that song is called. But Eminem disses this guy called Moby. This is Moby. He's a techno producer, and he's talking about. So he has all these tweets talking about how, yeah, right here. I was a bald binge drinker, and Natalie Portman was a beautiful movie star, but here she was in my dressing room flirting with me. So essentially, this is all from his book, It Fell Apart. And, while this book was released a while ago, we can see that, Moby is talking about dating Natalie Portman. And if you look at Moby, that's exactly what you would think, right? Top notch. That's a perfect connection. Match made in heaven, right? But I mean, essentially, this is, when you boil this down, this is just a drinker. Maybe not a drinker. I think he's sober. I couldn't tell you. I don't want to, allegedly, who knows? But essentially what he's talking about is, he says that he's had all these connections, and he's met Natalie Portman so many times, and he said, yeah, I dated Natalie Portman. And a lot of people say he did it just to sell his book, He does he but essentially what he's doing is just tweeting and being a crazy dude and talking about Natalie Portman, and Natalie Portman has come out and said, this is crazy. I completely deny this. This is bonkers. She says, I liked his music, but it never was that far. And the weirdest part is that Moby just continues to double down, and I think it's just, he has the money to just say whatever he wants. It's just one of those stories. And finally, my last, and we're going to end it with my favorite story. Good old Zachy boy, Zach Galifianakis. He's getting a movie, Between Two Ferns movie. And there's not much else to say on this except that I'm super excited for this. Between Two Ferns is possibly one of the greatest interview shows ever. And I think that clips of Between Two Ferns will literally save my life so many times over. But yeah, if you love Between Two Ferns, if you love Zach Galifianakis, be excited. I mean, if you love Reddit, then you love Galifianakis, that's for sure. Because he's gonna come back in full force with this thing, and we're gonna get a buttload of clips. Okay, that'll be it for me. A good story to end it on. A nice light note. I'm happy with that. So yeah, I hope you guys take care. That'll be it for my second news dive, but I guess my sweet old return to the news dives. Hopefully, I'm thinking about doing these maybe once or twice a week, depending on how the news cycle goes. But I'm doubting there'll be very interesting stories for a while. Yeah, that'll be about it. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you're just stopping by, make sure you hit that subscribe button. There should be a little notification to watch my old streams. Go ahead and do that. Do all the relevant stuff. And take care, guys.